live from the 2019 RMA International Conference at the Aria Resort Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. It's time now for a special episode of the Capital Club Radio Show, broadcasting on the Pro Business Channel networks. This show made possible in part by Flock Specialty Finance. And now, here's your host, Chairman and CEO of Flock Specialty Finance, Michael Flock.
Good afternoon from Las Vegas. Today, we're really fortunate to have a well-known leader and successful entrepreneur in the debt buying industry, Scott Lowery, founder of Collect America, which later became SquareTwo, a major player in the debt buying markets for many, many years. After cashing out of some of his equity in the mid-2000s, Scott left the CEO role and joined the board of SquareTwo as an advisor to the new president and CEO. Following Scott's leadership and tenure, the company's performance declined. It filed bankruptcy and was sold in 2017 to Resurgent Capital Services, an affiliate of Sherman Financial, for about $250 million. In 2018, Scott personally acquired Galaxy, a major debt buyer and master servicer based in Atlanta. So, Scott, welcome. And I can't wait to read the story or even see the movie of the roller coaster life you've led in this industry. You've got a rich, rich history and I think lots of future left. So, but let's start at the beginning. You started with a JD from the University of Denver and then started working for your dad. In fact, then I think you said you were working for GMAC, collecting what they couldn't. That was your first step into this whole world of collections. Now, you didn't dream about this, right? Was it sort of just an opportunistic thing, or how did you get there?
Well, Michael, thank you very much for that introduction. And let me just say it's an honor and a joy to be with you this afternoon, and I look forward to our next half hour together. I went to law school, worked for my father as a lawyer, a junior lawyer, and he started doing collection work, and he didn't want to do it, so he gave it to me as a junior lawyer out of law school.
So you got the job.
I got the job and started doing it, and we grew throughout the western part of the country with them and became very successful.
Uh-huh. And so collecting for GMAC, was it what you thought it was going to be, or were there some surprises? Or?
Well, there's always surprises, and I didn't know the business at all, so I probably did it a lot different than I would have done it if I knew what I was going to do, but I worked really hard. I thought we should collect every account. And what I did was I went to all these GMAC branches and said, I'll just do a really good job for you. And they had their own attorneys. And I remember driving up to Cheyenne, and I told this branch manager in Cheyenne how I'd just beat his attorney and I'd do the best job he ever had. And he said, son, and I remember thinking, uh-oh, this isn't going to be good. And he said, son, I'm sure you'll just do a way better job than my attorney, but every Sunday after church, when he and I go to lunch, he goes, what do I tell him? And I said, how about giving me the accounts that he gives back to you? And he goes, you got a deal. And I kind of did that approach throughout the western part of the United States. So they gave me all the stuff that had been worked by 4 or 5 other law firms and or agencies.
Right. Wow, that's a big paradigm shift. You started thinking every account you had to collect. Can you imagine today if you put the same resource on every single account?
Well, I even learned early on that wasn't going to happen, but that was the mentality. I don't know why you can't collect every account.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. And did you put the collection through a legal process, or did you first have a letter or a phone call? Or?
That's a great question. So early on, law firms did what law firms do, which is sue people. And most law firms at that point in time did not have collectors. And if they did, they didn't have large floors of collectors. Mm-hmm. And I felt that, so initially when we started doing it, we just sue people. And people would call and say, why didn't you call me?
Right.
Well, we didn't know. And they said, well, you should call me. Right. And so I thought, well, let's hire some people that'll start calling them and tell them we're going to sue them if they don't pay us.
Right.
And so that started, and we were successful with that. And I really felt that a law firm would be more ethical than an agency and would do a better job. And they were kind of the final buck, right? They could call and send letters, but they could also sue. So the buck stops here. But I really felt lawyers would be more ethical than agencies because they had their law license to keep. And so that was kind of the impetus for creating lawyers doing phone collections with the ability to sue. And it worked very well for GMAC.
So you thought through the legal process you were actually upgrading the collection experience because it was more ethical, more professional than your observation of how collection agencies worked. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. And then collection agencies, though, were more business oriented. So they had automation, sophistication around high volume collections, where law firms were open a file, go through the process, file a lawsuit, get a judgment. And most lawyers, even today, get a judgment and throw it on the back burner. I thought, let's work them. Let's try to collect it. And that was the impetus for trying to collect every account.
And what drove you initially to start your own business? Was it just sort of, did this happen, or did you have a vision?
Through working with my dad, I really thought that I could scale this nationally, and he didn't really want to do it. And I just thought there's a good business here. We can grow. There's a lot of business. And there's a lot of attorneys that I could turn into do what we did. And that was kind of the beginning of Collect America. I thought if I could create a company that would go get the business and manage the accounts and then have entrepreneurial attorneys that I could farm the accounts out to electronically and manage them based upon performance, that would be a better vehicle.
Okay, and so is that why you wanted to try franchising initially?
Yeah, initially I wanted to build a brand so people would be proud of
Collect America brand.
Yeah, and working for a company that had a known brand, and then ultimately the creditors started to see that, and the banks that we would buy from appreciated that, and they were dedicated to us, so they couldn't work anybody else's business. So we kind of controlled them in that respect, and we were able to grow it. So we ended up with about 30 franchises and over 130, 140 local counsel firms around the country.
And so by definition, each franchisee put in their own equity, and what did you give them the system, or what did you bring as the integrator?
Yeah, so we would bring them the systems and then the business.
Okay.
And that was sort of the deal. We didn't guarantee them any business because if they didn't perform, obviously. But they were all entrepreneurs, and so they owned their own business, and I think that's what got us such great success.
Because by definition, then, they're all owners, and you didn't have to worry about managing performance too much because it managed itself. Is that fair, or is that too simplistic a view of franchising?
I think that was an ideal perspective. Obviously, any of the things, the 80-20 rule. So we initially had to really start to vet attorneys better because we got some of the attorneys that weren't as hardworking as some of the others.
Right.
So then we set up competition within the states.
What were some of the obstacles to growing that franchise network you encountered?
Oh my gosh, the one that's kind of the funniest is I was the only law firm in the franchise network, and we really had one client. So I'd go try to sell a franchise to somebody in L.A., and they're like, "Oh, so you're a national network of attorneys?" Yeah, pretty much. And I said, "But if and they said, well, how many do you have?" And I said, well, just me. But if you come on, we'll have two, and then I can go get some business in L.A. And I had the same problem with the credit granters, right? So they'd say, "You're national network." Yeah, where do you have? Just in Denver. So it was the catch chicken or the egg for about 4 years.
Okay.
And I couldn't sell one, and it was really hard to buy paper or get clients.
So was it your own capital that you used to start up?
It was.
Collect America.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we didn't really have any capital, so I remember making payroll on a credit card and not getting paid for 2 or 3 years, and my wife looking at me, how long is this going to go on? But she's great and supportive, and we're still doing that today.
So it was primarily then collections at first. You got into debt buying later.
A little bit later.
A little bit later.
A little bit later.
So did you have a lot of sleepless nights during this initial startup phase?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Started at 2004 and we didn't make money. Started at 94 and didn't make money till 2000. So I had 6 years of losing money where I was a failure every day, and it wasn't working.
Oh my gosh!
So I had 6 years of days to quit, and I speak a lot to kids, and I think if you have a good business plan and you know it should work, you're just trying to figure out how to get there. You just don't quit. I didn't ever think I was going to quit. I just knew that maybe I wasn't quite there. I hadn't figured it out.
So for 6 years,
you're
never quite there.
And you're always adjusting, right? You're trying to do it a little different. Okay, this didn't work. Let me try something else. And so I was a 6-year failure. And you have every day for 6 years, do you quit? It never dawned on me. I even had people like, how much longer are you going to do this? And it's kind of like, gosh, I hadn't even thought about that. This is what I do. I'll figure it out. But I am persistent. So
success can always be around the corner. You just can't see it. And so you've got to be...
Well, we talked a little bit the other day about success not being linear. So it's not a direct trade-off. So you can do 90% of the work and still have 0 or 5 or 10% of the success, and then all of a sudden it trips.
That's a great quote, Scott, that you gave me, that work and the outcome are not linear.
They're not linear.
Not linear.
And usually it catches up really quick, right? You do a lot of work. It's the 10,000-hour rule. You practice, and suddenly you're an overnight sensation. So,
of course, it doesn't. The opposite isn't true either. That not working is linear.
Right. Right.
So you still have to do the hard work. But your point is, it's never guaranteed.
No, it's never guaranteed.
But you didn't stop. So you had that grit and that perseverance to get through all that. So, but now, why did you abandon, I guess, the Collect America franchise model? Because at one point you changed, right?
Yeah. So, did a partial sale of the company in 2006, and in 2008 and 2009, kind of pre-recession, we had doubled the value of the company between 2006 and 2008. And
by the way, who did you sell it to? The partner?
The private equity partner was KRG Capital, and actually I went to school with one of the principals, and we held an auction, and so they were the successful. But I knew the principals.
Okay.
And great Denver-based firm. So,
KRG.
Yeah.
Okay. That was 2006, and then in 2008.
So then in 2008, we were getting ready to do an IPO at about a 3x multiple of what we sold the company for 2 years ago, and 30 days later, the financial crisis hit. So that didn't happen.
So how did you deal with that? I mean, that was, I guess, our most major recession since the Depression. Now, sometimes that could be good for collections, depending how you look at it, or very bad.
So we triggered every financial covenant that we had, obviously, and we had collections over 90 days drop in half.
When you say covenants, was it just on the equity side or also on the debt that you leveraged?
Just on the debt.
On the debt, okay.
And our equity partners are great. So as we're flying around the country with to meet all the banks, I remember going into a beautiful 5 or 6 story building that was a hedge fund, and the building was empty, and it was a $16 billion hedge fund that had $10 billion in redemptions in the last 6 months. So there's like 5 guys in the building.
Oh, no.
And we sit across a table that's 10 feet wide, and I give my hour-and-a-half speech about how I'm going to turn this around and we're going to fix it. And I got the other son. He goes, "You are going to write a check to me before you leave."
Did you?
No. And they ended up agreeing, and we refinanced the company, and it started growing again.
But did you lose control then at that point?
No, so it was still with KRG, and we kind of restructured the debt at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's early 2009, mid 2009. At that point, we really wanted to grow it, and we figured that the market would be right. And I thought, I'm a little Denver guy. I want to go get a professional, somebody that's a professional CEO. And we went and hired a gentleman and that we felt was a professional. And so he ran the company starting in 2009. I resigned as president and CEO, and he ran the company. And then he decided to rebrand the company. And,
so that was his decision, not yours.
Decision, yeah.
From Collect America to SquareTwo. And what was behind the name change?
I think he wanted a more marketable brand. He spent a lot of money on marketing that I spent zero money on, and he really felt we needed a presence to the banks and to our sellers. And he felt that we were not in the collection business. We were in the debt buying business, and we weren't just in America. We had the largest debt buying firm in Canada as well. So he felt it didn't match, and I think that's a fair comment. But so we rebranded it SquareTwo Financial.
Okay. So that didn't necessarily reflect a giant change in direction, more marketing?
Yeah, more marketing, and then he obviously spent a lot of money on branding and awareness to the public.
Okay.
So, but the direction stayed the same. I mean, we branched out into some other verticals, but yeah.
So at that point, you were pretty much aligned with. You were on the board, and you were aligned with the new CEO, and
again, whenever you hire somebody, as an owner and a founder, it's tough, and so. Did I want to change the name? No, but he was the new CEO, and I had to step back and allow him to. I didn't want to micromanage the CEO, and again, part of this was I want to go get a professional. Well, and he was coming in doing some things that he felt. So I don't know that we were aligned, but I was allowing him to
do his job,
to exercise the control that we had given him.
And how many employees did you have then at that point?
Probably 125.
125, and the revenues were.
Well, in 2008, the revenue was just under $600 million, and EBITDA was over $100 million.
Wow.
With 125 employees.
That's incredible. And how much of that was debt buying versus collection?
It was all debt buying.
All debt buying at that point?
Yeah.
Because you started out just with collections, and then you migrated into debt buying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was all debt buying at that point. So we were collecting $50 million a month.
Right. And how much were you buying a year on average?
That's going back. Several billion. We buy several billion every quarter.
Face, and then the purchase price. I mean, so roughly capital.
Yeah, we were spending $400 million a year.
200, 300, 400 million
a year, kind of depending on the year. I mean, but 20, 30, 40 million a month.
And did you have a process in place of underwriting that was unique to SquareTwo, or?
We felt we did. We had a good database. We had good, I've been very fortunate and worked with some brilliant people and try to stay out of their way and let them do their jobs. But I think we had good underwriting. We had solid returns, and we had a good database that would allow us to model. And then scoring was coming out, and we used a lot of different variables to. We created our own scoring models, and it worked very well.
And was there still a process, even with you on the board, where you could have some oversight then to the investments? Or how did you try to manage to that transition while you want to let the CEO do his job, but at the same time, you still have a lot of equity in the company, right? Because you only sold part of it in 2009, right?
I sold a very 06.
I
sold a very small piece of it. And, so I was, other than the private equity firm, I was the second largest shareholder. And no, we had... my title that was I think special advisor to the president and CEO. So I was his assistant. But basically, I was in purchasing committees down the hall from him. He listened to me. He would get advice for probably 6 months, and then it kind of veered away.
Okay,
which you started to see a different span of control.
But there are times, did you really want to intervene when you saw maybe some investments in portfolios that you didn't agree with, or?
It was less about that, and it was more about out-of-control spending.
Okay.
And
spending on portfolios or operational?
No, I'm sorry, operationally, salaries.
Okay.
Just you name it.
Yep.
They saw a need to have one. And, I think also we overpaid partners to collect.
Okay.
By probably... if the market's 2021, we were paying them 35% of every dollar collected.
Okay.
And, probably...
For fresh
paper. Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, we don't have to do that. It's way high.
Right.
I mean, and and he just said, this isn't your little debt buying company anymore. This is, and we're making so much money that it's fine. I said, well, it doesn't matter. We're making a lot of money. We need to not pay out.
Right. And you were outsourcing 100%. Right,
SquareTwo outsourced 100%.
Never had any
out to the franchises.
Right.
Yeah.
Were they the same franchises as Collect America, or?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we'd add some, and there's migration, and we'd kick some out from time to time.
So the franchises, these were making good money then, 35%.
Yeah, they were making good money at 2021, and they were making Yeah. Actually, it's kind of ironic. The franchises approached the company quite often and said, you don't need to pay us this, and we're fine. So,
whoa,
yeah.
Well, that's when you knew you had a problem.
Yeah, I knew he had a problem, and it wasn't his money, and he didn't act like it was his money. And I think there was, he was a banker, so there was a lot of we're better than bill collectors, and that came across.
We're better than you.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing, Scott, is that what's interesting is when you first started out and you had 6 years of no income, personal income, and you were so confident, though, that you were still going to succeed. I mean, you weren't really worried. You just said it's going to take longer. Is that right?
In hindsight, it might have been stupidity, but yeah, I knew it was
well-intentioned stupidity.
It was well-intentioned. I'm persistent, so
persistent. So you weren't. Yeah, I mean, you weren't. You had probably some sleepless nights, but you knew in the end you were going to succeed. And so what's interesting is now, go back to 2009, 10, 11. Were there moments now where you were worried that, you were starting to see bad things? Were you worried then that your company, your baby, was going to fail?
Yeah. I think I knew in 2012 or early 2013 that if we didn't drastically change course, we weren't going to make it.
And drastically change course meant the collection service fees you were paying, but what else? Was it something strategic or in the management of the organization?
So when we went, you kind of put it in perspective, we go from spending 20, 30, 40 million a month with 300 people to spending $5 million a month with 280 people. So headcount was way inflated and bloated, and again, very, very good, talented people, but there was a failure to reduce the size of the company given the market.
Because the market drove down the deployments, correct, right, or the purchases.
Spend, yeah. So,
or I could think that maybe you got more conservative in your underwriting. Maybe prices were rising, and so SquareTwo decided maybe we better not be paying these prices.
And we did. We backed away from the market, but again, as our revenues declining, the expenses
you didn't take out any of the headcount, the people.
No.
Yeah.
And that was painfully obvious across the board. Really starting at about 2013, so a year after that, because it just wasn't changing.
Okay. So that really must have been painful for you as the founder.
It was horribly painful. It was horribly painful, and a lot of, for me, it was more, what do I do as a founder and as a shareholder, as a major shareholder, and as a board of director. And I've taken grief from some people that, why didn't you leave? And I thought about that. I thought about having to stand up on the table in a boardroom. This is crazy. We got to do something faster. And,
right.
I voiced my opinion in the boardroom, and there was 9 people in there, and they disagreed with me. And I thought, sometimes I thought maybe I was wrong. That I'm not the smartest guy in the room. There's a lot of smart people sitting around this table, and they're telling me that I need to relax and it'll work out.
But it didn't.
It didn't.
And so it was in 2016 that it filed for bankruptcy? Or
early 17.
Early 17.
Yeah.
Okay. Filed for bankruptcy, and then that's when Resurgent bought it.
Correct.
For $250 million.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yes. And I guess, 4 or 5 years before that, it was probably worth how much at its peak?
Oh, well, we had gotten an offer in 2011 for $800 million.
Oh, wow. So it dropped from $800 million to $250.
And a bankruptcy, yeah.
And a bankruptcy.
We didn't get the $250.
Yeah. And I guess, were you interested to buy back your baby?
I did. I was one of the bidders at the end.
But you didn't want to pay as much as Resurgent, so...
That's not true. It just, I think Resurgent was there and ready to write the check, and we needed a little bit more time, and they were able to execute quicker than I was. And part of my dilemma in repurchasing it was I was going to have to do what Resurgent did, which is really effectively gut the company. I would have kept 30 or 40 people, 50 people, some smaller number. But I didn't know if the banks would buy from us, because they were going to wash it out of bankruptcy irrespective of who bought it.
Okay.
And I was worried that the banks would walk away from us, or say, come visit us in 3 years when you're going to be around. Yeah.
Right.
So where it was absorbed into Resurgent, and obviously they're capable of buying.
Right.
So.
Wow. That must have been so hard for you.
It was very hard.
To try to buy back your company, and then you couldn't.
Well, and while we had 200, at that point they started letting people go, and we probably had 180, 200 people, but these are people that I'd been with the company for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. So it was also personally painful, not just professionally in your pride, but personally to see people that you probably had worked with in the past lose their jobs.
Especially when it didn't have to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very, very sad, because it was a great company, lots of great people. People are all over the industry today. Doing a great job for other businesses, and it's happy for me to see them move on and be in great roles, but still tough, because it didn't have to happen.
Mm-hmm. So fast forward to 2018, you acquired Galaxy, the debt buyer and master servicer. I can't resist the pun, but are you going from SquareTwo to Square One now? I couldn't resist. Sorry.
No, that was a little
back to Square One.
A little touchy, but I actually like the humor, so it's good. Very much to the point.
So, and you don't need the money, so you're not doing this for the transaction,
right?
You don't need the money because you still did really well with your first sale. Maybe not as well as you wanted, but
correct.
You still did well, and you're very successful. And so why are you going back for more punishment? Or it's not punishment because it's not a transaction.
It's not a transaction. Your slogan is absolutely correct. I love to see. I'm probably have an ability to see where I want to go and describe that or explain it to people who will then believe in the process. And so it's allowed me and the company to hire really, really great people. And I try to get out of their way and let them execute. So I try to explain the vision. Obviously, if they're joining us, they believe in it. That's how we grew Collect America to the size that we did. We just fantastic people that really believed in it and creating culture. And so really this Square One redo or encore is
there's another pun.
Is a way to gather again great people and work with some fun people. And I love the business. I think the business is fun. There's so many levers to pull. I love the compliance models now.
Really?
Firms are compliant.
Because it's much more difficult now. There's so many more barriers to entry with compliance being what it is. Why do you love that? Because
in the early days, I used to joke that if you had the keys to the office, you made a lot of money. You just show up and you made money. That there was enough margin in it back then. So now as the business has matured, you've got to be serious about the business. You've got to always stay focused on it. And the barriers to entry are much higher. So you don't get people that just say, geez, what about this debt buying? I heard it's great.
Right.
And they have some money and they come in and they compete with you. And no, the barriers to entry are high. You have to have compliance management systems that are robust. I think that's fun. I think that's great.
But it takes now so much longer, doesn't it, to be onboarded by one of the major banks to be able to either collect or buy from them. So
it does, but then again, because it does take longer, that if you're doing what you say you're doing and you are compliant and you can perform inside of a band and pay that debt back and make money, they're not going to leave you either.
Right. You said people are the most important decisions or part of the building a business. How do you hire people, and how have you developed like an organizational vision for your new company?
That's a great question. I partnered with some great people, Greg Enerson and Bill Sturm, and these guys are just geniuses and built a very successful law firm that's in 25 states and represents a lot.
Is it a collection law firm?
It's a collection law firm, yes. And just fantastic individuals. And so I think we all have the same thinking of we want to build a great company on the debt buying side that allows us to continue and execute at a high level.
So you must have shared vision or shared values or shared goals?
Exactly, all of those. And also on how we think about business and people. And for me, culture is really important. And you've got to have people that want to work there, that are excited about growing, that believe in your vision. And Greg and Bill they epitomize that. They work very hard. And they want to do it right. And they have a lot of clients that give them business, so they're doing that.
And how do you build culture in your new company?
I think it's simple and it's hard. It's the things you learned in elementary school, how to play well with others in the sandbox. You've got to genuinely like people. You've got to genuinely respect people. You've got to have people believe in your vision and believe in you, and then they'll push you. Because they're carrying us there. I don't do anything. They make sure that we get there as an organization. And so if they believe in that, and the vision and the people, they'll pick you up and walk you through there. So it's culture is respecting people. It's a golden rule. It's treating people as you would want to be treated. But genuinely, it's easy to say it. But you've got to believe it and feel it, and then do things for people.
So what will be different about how Scott Lowery, the CEO of the new company, by the way, are you still keeping the Galaxy name, or is it going to be called something different?
We're keeping the Galaxy name. Obviously, we would have to re-letter a lot of accounts if we changed the name.
That's very practical. Yeah. That's a very good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yes.
So will you keep the same management styles you had when you built Collect America and SquareTwo, or?
Yeah, I think so. It's very, it's obviously formalized org chart, but everybody's got their function, and I respect those functions. And I think I'm more strategic and visionary, and just as the older man in the room, I've been there and done that a little bit, and I get that respect from the team for that. Okay. Which, again, younger guys with more energy can do certain things, and then the older guy with maybe a little bit more marks on his back is able to help them understand more long-term.
Give them perspective. So your decision-making management style probably won't change from what you started out with initially.
Not at all. I can tell you I'll no longer want to have a professional run the company as a third party. I'll not encourage that. I think when you really care, that's really what you've got to do. You've got to watch things and care, and it's in your hands, and you take good care of it.
And right now, the equity, I guess, is it all yours, or is it
no?
Your partners?
So my partners, and then we have a
combination.
Some outside investors, and but it's closely held.
And you'll leverage your equity as you did before.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And competitive advantage in your new company. What will be kind of vision or strategy to separate you from the pack?
So several things. I think, again, creating that culture, creating a little bit different mindset in the business. I'm a believer that every day you've got to come and do it better, no matter whether it's compliance, performance, people. You're always pushing
underwriting,
underwriting. Just kind of every area that matters. Cost control. But yet I'm not afraid to spend money to make money, and I think that's important. You don't want to lose sight of where you're trying to get to, so you become so frugal that you don't move. But I think we have an ability to collect, and we want to use that ability and leverage that ability so we can control our costs, control the collection side of it, and then really leverage the great talent that we have in the company.
And the headquarters will still be in Denver, but you'll have a location in Atlanta.
Yeah, so
Galaxy.
Galaxy is in Atlanta. Denver is principally a call center for the law firm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I go back and forth between both of those.
And you'll keep the systems that Galaxy had. You're not going to.
Yeah, I mean,
convert them to something else.
No. I think we've moved them more to a co-location facility. They were in house, and we've moved some of that around, but no, we'll keep the same systems.
Right.
They're working well, and there's a ton of inventory on them, and I think at this point it'd be disruptive.
And can you share your financial goals for the new company?
I think the market again is where it was 15 years ago. Again,
that good. Okay.
I think it's tremendous. Again, it's harder to compete today, but the people that are in it, so you've got more bandwidth for scale. So you don't have a whole bunch of people. You don't have 500 debt buyers. You've got some number less. So I think they're only going to go to a handful of people, and charge-offs are increasing, which they are. The selling of debt. I think the banks are going to start. Not maybe going there 100%, but I think more banks will sell at least a part of their inventory.
Right.
And if any of the big banks come back that haven't yet, I think that'll moderate prices a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm super excited about where the market is today.
Okay.
Again, if you're in, and you've got good systems. I wouldn't want to be on the outside looking in, but I think if you're in, the market's unbelievable, and I want to grow Galaxy into a very large company.
So similar to what SquareTwo was?
Correct.
I mean, not in the outcome, but your original vision.
On the revenues, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so you go after similar asset classes, the large credit card portfolios, or will you pursue more niche purchases as well? Both.
I think both.
Okay.
I think we want to be nimble and be able to go where the sellers are.
Okay. So then ultimately you'll be competing with the publicly traded companies then, if PRA and Encore and
I don't really want to
Sherman.
do that. I think there's enough market out there for us to not compete for a long time.
Okay. So maybe initially you're focused on kind of the upper middle market segments?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
No, we want to consciously not compete with them.
Head-to-head with them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of business able to be obtained. And again, if you look at a lot of the debt buyers, I think they've got their corner of the market and they're happy and they're not at risk in terms of they don't want to grow.
Right.
I fail a lot because I push a lot, and so I want to grow this business. And I think in order to grow it, you've got to push, but do it temperately and with thought. But not be happy with my little corner of the world. I think we can grow it into a meaningful company.
So wrapping it up for our listeners, I got two more questions for you. What are then the lessons learned, if you could summarize in the last few decades of this very colorful kind of bit of a roller coaster career you've had in debt buying, and you're about to do it again? What then how would you summarize the good and the bad? What lessons learned can our listeners gain from you?
Well, I think when you look at, there's several things. There's business lessons and life lessons and then just human lessons. And I think you parse those down. And business, you focus on what matters. And people know what those things are. I mean, revenue, expenses, doing a good job, focusing on your people. But I just listed three things, like you check the box. But you really have to do that. And you have to do it day in and day out with consistent focus. On the people side, it's just trying to hire the best people, and again, hiring people that are better than you. That's easy for me to do, but I think you have to just constantly look for great people that believe in your vision. And then just on the market, and you just got to stay focused and work with where you're at. And I think part of it is not get sidetracked into what you want, but be aware of your environment and what you're able to do, and then operate within that. So sometimes you don't get to do what you want to do because the market won't give you that.
Okay.
But again, the golden rule, I mean, I think the life lessons are simple. There's nothing complex about them. We all want to be treated fairly. We all want to be given an opportunity, and we all want to be a part of success.
And then I guess, quoting you again, remember that the relationship between work and outcome is not linear.
Unfortunately.
So meaning it's not guaranteed. Just because you're working hard, that's not enough.
That's right. It's not.
So you've got to be, at the right place, the right time.
And then work really, really hard.
And then work really, really hard.
And get a lot of luck, I think.
Yeah. And not give up, though. And not give up.
No.
Which you did not give up for those 6 years during that.
And even the last 5 years. When SquareTwo was having its difficulty, I stayed there. And again, I would have been better off personally if I'd have left.
If you'd left.
But I couldn't do that.
You couldn't leave your baby there?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you still got a very long runway with your new company, but someday, decades from now, how would you like your obituary written? What would you like to be remembered for?
Oh, gosh. My family is so important to me, and I've got an awesome wife. Again, when you don't get paid for many years, and even recently when you don't get paid for many years, and she puts up with that and never. And I travel a lot, and she's fine with all that. Great kids who work for us, and so that's probably number one is my family and my faith. Lover of people and want to do good, want to give back. Somebody who did that, who gave of his time, and I think I want to make sure that I treated the people that I came into contact with fairly and helped them in some way with a life lesson or a suggestion or just a pat on the back and an encouragement, which doesn't read well on a rock, but.
Yeah, that begs another question. Yeah, what would you want on the rock? He went from square two to square one. No,
right.
no. He did an encore.
Yes.
Even better than maybe the original. Oh. Well, Scott, thank you for this fascinating interview and sharing these incredible stories with us this afternoon here at the RMA conference in Las Vegas. Someday you really should write about all this. You've had such an exciting journey and track record that clearly is not finished. So I can't wait to see the sequel. I really can't. And so we're looking forward to watching you in the years ahead and tracking your new company, your new team, and the new success that I know is awaiting you. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We want to thank you for listening to this special episode of the Capital Club Radio Show with your host, Michael Flock, and his guests live from the 2019 RMA International Conference at the Aria Resort Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, made possible again in part by Flock Specialty Finance, more than a transaction. For more info, visit flockfinance.com. To listen to this rebroadcast and other episodes, visit capitalclubradio.com.